Hey everyone, welcome to the GTM News Show. I got Mark Kilens here today. Thanks, Mark, for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Taylor. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, the reason why I brought Mark on, Mark is the CMO from AirMeet. And in my marketing experience working for B2B companies, I haven't found one of the a better go-to-market marketing tactic other than like virtual events and webinars, like building relationships at scale. I have not found something that's more efficient than webinars, virtual events, especially in the past 5 years or so. So I'd love to hear, Mark, and that's kind of the reason I brought you on, especially in this day and age where go-to-market, everyone's looking for efficiency. Wanted to tap your expertise around all things events. I've been following you on LinkedIn, learned a lot from you around kind of event-led growth. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm excited.
Sweet. Sweet. Awesome. So for kind of first question, let's define AirMeet has kind of pioneered and seen this term a lot, which is event-led growth. Tell me about what does event-led growth mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I can share my high-level description, and then we can decide how to unpack it. It's helping a business do three things. One is it's going to help a business discover new leads, new buyers, new accounts. At the same time, it's going to help those buyers, those potential customers discover more about you. You know, maybe how you can help them solve your problems. You know, what's your point of view, what you believe in, etc. So that's step one: discover. Step two, it's all about engaging. You know, how can you engage those buyers, those open opportunities, your customers, in a more dynamic, captivating way. That engagement for them means, hey, I'm learning more about how you can help me. I'm learning more about your solution. I'm learning more about the value you can provide to me. I'm learning more about your customers that you have today and how you've helped them, all the way through to like, hey, I'm engaging you, after I become a customer. And then the final step in event-led growth is really not discover. Sorry, I already said that, as grow. How do you use events of all types and sizes and shapes to grow your customers, your advocates though as well, and how do they grow because you're helping them grow, right? It's that mutual value, if you will. Like, you're giving them education, you're giving them places to learn, you're getting them introduced to one another through customer meetups, community meetups, etc. So if you think about it from a jobs to be done framework, it's kind of discover, engage, grow. And in each of those kind of phases, it's about collecting the right data and intent signals, engagement signals that your marketing, sales, and customer success teams can use to grow the business.
Super cool. I love that. Discover, engage, grow. Did I get those three buckets correct? Awesome.
You got it.
I love that. And I love how it's looking at the entire buyer's journey, customer's journey, and looking at how you can impact those different areas of the journey. Tell me about, you piqued my interest, especially in this day and age where retention and expansion is a huge focus in the B2B world. How can we get the most, selfishly from the business standpoint, how do we get the most revenue out of each customer? But then also, how do we keep people happy, keep them, successful long-term? How does virtual events, webinars, events in general, how do you see them being used for retention and expansion plays?
It's a great point. Great question. It's also about efficiency. So it's how do you do like customer success at scale, but also be proactive at customer success, and also community building through your customers and advocates. So interestingly enough, like one of the first things I did at HubSpot, I was actually not on the marketing team. I was on the customer success team, and I started this experiment way back in 2010 that eventually led to become HubSpot Academy. But the experiment was all about how do we add or how do we help our customers learn more about inbound marketing, HubSpot, through live trainings, live webinars, live online events. We did everything from like 60-minute landing page review with 60 landing pages, so reviewing one a minute, to, hey, we're going to do a deep dive into how to be a pro blogger at your business, everything, right? Everything related to my marketing. And that helped the CSMs, the onboarding people, focus more on like the strategic things that each customer was caring about, and took them away from having to just do the product training and the email marketing training and all this education. And this eventually led to like a lot more evangelism and community building, and prospects started to go to it. We actually had a lot of people that weren't customers, potential buyers, join these live sessions. We were doing 1, 2, sometimes even 3 a week. And at the end of the day, that's all about growth, helping you as a customer grow, helping you grow and get more value from HubSpot. So today, I think it's extremely important for marketing teams to help those customer success teams create programs like that and get your customers, number one, more engaged, teach them more things, inspire them more about what other customers are doing, do live online experiences when it comes to your product launch. You're not going to always be able to do an in-person event for a product launch. Sometimes you will, but for a lot of them, you're doing sometimes monthly, if not every quarter, product launches or updates. Use online events for that. Use online events for customer community meetups. And then maybe once or twice a year, you do a bigger meetup. There's all these different kind of use cases or approaches you can take, especially when it comes to your question around retention, growth, but doing it efficiently, because you can never do that always in person. It doesn't make sense for you as a business or the people you're trying to get to those events. It's just not tenable.
I love that. Thank you for that additional clarification of like efficiency and how do we do these, how do we have these high impact touch points with customers post sale efficiently, and events can do that. And I love too how in the HubSpot customer success scenario, customer success, you're creating content, maybe even subject matter led content, right? Something that's really rich with material so that you can help your customers, but then you repurpose that for marketing or to bring, maybe even just invited folks into it. The reason why I love that is because a lot of times marketers, we try to create all the content on our own. We try to create the events on our own, and we're not necessarily the subject matter expert, right? Customer success has so much perspective on the value, on even just, experience and knowledge around how to actually execute whatever the product or service is. So that's super cool. And tying that back in, thanks for sharing. Yeah. I'm curious what, we're talking about multiple different situations for events, right? We're talking about like, maybe top of funnel with Discover. We're talking about engaging accounts and sales. We're talking about post sale. Tell me about like across the board, what are some like maybe 4 or 5 like key ingredients to a successful event?
Another very good question. So fast moving, dynamic. If you think about traditional webinars, I mean, some of them are simu-live, if you will, like they're pre-recorded and then done live. That's insane to me. That's just a video, right? Like, no, they're super dynamic. They're fast moving. They have a run of show. They keep the audience engaged, like a good TV show. A TV show is cutting between scenes and different actors on a regular basis, sometimes very quickly, sometimes a little bit more drawn out, but that's what a good, online event, if you will, does. Second is they have a great host. Typically there's some kind of either main character or a host that really keeps it going. You need that. And that, that person needs to be able to multitask. They're a great public speaker. They're passionate about the thing that they're kind of facilitating or talking about. Lots of things that we can unpack there, but you need that. You also just need, third, to plan. You need to plan. So I say for every 30 minutes you do in an online event or webinar, you need to do at least minimum 3x more time into preparation. So 30 minutes means 90 minutes of preparation. That's bare minimum. I would recommend at 4 to 5. So it's like, a couple hours at least for every 30 minutes you need, 30 minutes you're doing an online event with. So the preparation is usually often overlooked. Fourth would be engagement with the audience. Like you got to find ways to engage the audience. It plays into number 1 a little bit with dynamic, and fast moving events, but you got to keep the audience, first off, expecting maybe the unexpected. And secondly, getting them to participate in the actual content delivery. You got to make it two-way, talking with them, not at them. That's the key. You can't just talk at people anymore. You got to talk with them. If you talk at someone, that's just a video again. Like what's the difference between a video and a webinar then? And then I'd say 5, you got to be thoughtful about how you follow up, and how you also, even include them before, but after the online event. How do you want to make that experience, live on? And that could be maybe, multiple, episodic things you do. Maybe it's more around the follow-up that happens from sales or CS. Maybe it's part of your campaign, execution overall, but it shouldn't just be an isolated thing.
Yeah. Oh man, I can resonate with all of those. I really like what you said around, really focusing on having first the pace. I think that's super critical. Introductions, like even in this podcast, like I didn't go into long introductions for the podcast. I mean, no one really cares, let's be honest. And I think like introductions or even transitions or stuff like that, where there's so much content out there that people have, 2 seconds and they're on to the next thing. And so being competitive, having that engagement. And I like the two-way as well. I like that two-way communication where, and that's where I think even at the beginning, when I mentioned like building relationships, that's where I think the key ingredient I've seen with events is when it is a two-way conversation, people do feel like they're building a relationship with your brand or with you because they're engaging with it, right? If you don't have that, it's just like watching a video. There's that key element of relationship building that I just don't think you're going to get.
Yes. Yeah, and people think you can't do that with online events, and I just don't agree. I've seen it happen. I've done it with online events. I've done it with in-person events, right? If you design it correctly and you have the right technology and tools, you can absolutely meet people and build relationships and book meetings and have interactions that maybe not as from a sensory standpoint as experiential or activate your senses like you would if you're in person, but again, you can't always be in person. There's just physical, financial limitations to that. So you really, the companies that use event-led growth the best do both. They do in person and online, and they do a variety of different styles and types of events to have a really healthy portfolio mix, just like you would like if you're investing in anything. You have a healthy mix of your portfolio.
I love that because you probably don't know it's going to work until you do it enough times. So it helps with that, then also keeps things interesting and create the variety. I love that. Yep. You actually led me right into my next question: hybrid events. So yeah, we could probably spend the next hour talking about hybrid events and the nuances and the weirdness of hybrid events and executing them. Just want to hear your thoughts, like high level. What makes a great hybrid event? What have you seen? How to bridge the gap between the two?
So I'm not a big believer in hybrid events. Okay. Like this is, we could
hot take.
Debate this a bit. I think hybrid is a myth. If you do a hybrid event, and so you have two audiences, one online, one in person, then it's two events, right? Because you have an in-person audience and even online audience. But if you just stream the in-person content to online, isn't that just like streaming a live sporting event or concert or TV show to a different audience? It's like it's not the same, right? It's just a stream. So I would be very cautious when thinking hybrid. And actually, crazy enough, like Inbound, for example, HubSpot's big flagship event this year is not having any virtual component, online component, only in person. They had last year they did some in person and online. No, got rid of it. So I don't know. Like it's number one, very expensive to do well. Number two, if you just live stream, then it's like, well, like first off, live stream is expensive. That's the other thing, right? If you just even live stream, it's expensive, right? That doesn't, it's not cheap. And third, like, I think there's better ways to do it. I think you could do a virtual event before the in-person event or right after the in-person event, or, we did that at my past company Drift with an in-person event. A few weeks later, we took some of the content and did it as an online event too, right? So people got a taste. I believe hybrid it's actually calmed down, I think, in terms of how many people are talking about it since the pandemic now has shifted to be something that really doesn't exist anymore. And it was that those 6 to 12 months kind of as we were coming out of it, going into it, it's like, oh, hybrid's going to be it. But like, nah, not really. It's like, it's better to pick a lane and stay in it instead of trying to drive down the highway and be in two lanes at the same time.
Yeah. Good analogy. I like that. And, that's well said. And I think I can resonate. I'm planning our user conference for my day job, and we were evaluating this, and the hybrid model is it just doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. And I can see why folks are pivoting away from that and creating and really focusing on, your audience where they're at. And I think that's the key, is like creating a better experience versus having like two different groups and trying to serve them the same. Like from a marketing standpoint or sales standpoint, if you have two different segments, two different groups you're marketing to or selling to, two different industries, right? You wouldn't sell them the same thing or market them the same way. I kind of think about in that same analogy. Very interesting. So, and events in general, I'd love for you to share even just like benchmarks, like what does, if you have any benchmarks that you can share as far as what does a successful event look like, show up rate, all fun stuff like that. If you have any ideas, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah. So we actually did a study with Forrester. It's about 4 or 5 months ago now at this point, where we asked a ton of questions to hundreds of B2B marketers around mostly like online events and whatnot. So let me see if I can pull some stats up.
Cool.
So one of the things we said is around this idea of putting the audience at the center. So 73% of these respondents said aligning the right event, audience, and time can lead to a lot better business growth. So that's just something that I think goes back to event-led growth, where a good event starts with the who, then it's like why, then the what. So it's that alignment between those three things is something that you really got to do, no matter what size or type event you're putting on. So that's one. When it comes to attendance and show up rates for online events, that's where I don't have great data. It's all over the place. Some people are seeing 20, 25%. Others are seeing 50, 55%, even some even higher than that. It's so dependent on what I just said. That's the reason I started with that, which is that alignment between the audience, the type of event, and then, the topic and time. I think the time does matter a bit, of course, but I actually think even the topic matters more than the time. What type of day you do it?
Yeah, go ahead. Time wise. Sorry, just what time wise the time is like what type of day you do it, or the seasonality of it, or more seasonality?
All of that, time, day, seasonality, but also time, like where does it fall in the customer journey? So going back to event-led growth, that those discover, engage, grow, creating like unique, differentiated online experiences. The top three things people said were unique activities, great content, and a high energy host. Those are the top three.
Great
so that's
content.
interesting, right? That's something you might not find interesting. There's actually a talent and skills gap right now with online events. There's not a lot. That's what, according to the study of again, marketing leaders, they don't think there's a lot of people that know how to do this either that well. So that's interesting. I can keep going on, but I'll share the link with you. The fact of the matter is it's in a transition period. I think we're all in this transition period. It will start to even out at some point, but the webinars of the old day, if the old day being, pre-pandemic, the decade of 2010 to 2020 are going to look a lot different in this now decade of 2020 to 2023. I just think fundamentally it's going to be a lot of change. And some of that's going to also have to do just with on-demand content. I mean, because a lot of people, what we're also seeing at AirMeet is, we're seeing about 30-35% show rates, but 20 to 30% of those, on top of that, 20-30% additional are people watching the recording. So we're seeing over 50% of people who sign up get the content in some way, but some are showing up live with the live audience. Some are just showing up on their own time.
Wow, fascinating. Almost half or close to it are watching it later, which just proves, repurposing and, is such a powerful, or at least you were using it for that same audience, right? Allowing them to watch it on demand. In addition to all the repurposing opportunities later on.
Yep.
You've said something which I think ties into my next question really well. Creating the content. You mentioned there's not a whole lot. There may be a talent deficiency in regards to having enough folks that can either create content or be the host or whatnot. First, it's a business idea, somebody out there to help fill that gap. But number two, what are some of your this high level ideas around like where folks can get the right content, the right subject matter experts to come on? Just like, I love you to spitball different ideas as like, is it customers? Is it partners? Is it influencers? What's your thoughts on that?
It could be all of the above. I mean, some of the things I look for. So the host is different than speakers, but not exactly. I mean, there's some similarities, but then it also ties to like the audience, right? I think the number one thing I look for when I try to vet guests, speakers, hosts is just their level of passion and excitement for what they're going to be talking about, or what they're going to be facilitating, or what they're going to be teaching. Like, it's really hard to fake passion. But it's really easy when you have passion to show it to other people. So
I love that.
Yeah, I just think that's like the most important thing. The ability, or not the ability, the experience of doing it will play a factor. Like, if someone's done 50 or 100 online events, they're going to be a lot better at the audience piece than if someone's only done it a few times. It's just a matter of fact. They've learned tips and tricks, right? They understand how to do it. They've been coached through practice and experience. So I think that does weigh, right? That does weigh into it. But again, if you have to get started, you got to start somewhere. I would then, if someone doesn't have a lot of experience and they're like a speaker, just have a good host, because the good host can carry a speaker, right? And you can prepare them, spending an hour, maybe an hour and a half with them, getting them ready. I tell a lot of people when I do online events, to say, like, look, if I ask you a question or throw something your way that you're just not sure what to do with because it was just unexpected or too fast on their feet, just improv skills is another thing I look for. I think that goes a long, long way these days. That's a good public speaker is improv skills too, right? Your mic might go out. Your presentation might not show itself. Something might happen, but like, when you just not going to talk, you just going to stand there? I don't think so. So just the ability to react quickly to situations is a very important thing.
I love that. Thanks for differentiating too. I think that'll be helpful for the audience, the host versus maybe some of the speakers. What's really cool, and I love seeing this happen, is I see like an AE, an account executive, will be the host, right? It's a very charismatic, individual, and they're a great public speaker, and they ask great questions, and they can engage people. But then they have all the subject matter experts, the people that have the deep knowledge to then pick their brain. And I think curiosity is also a big one too. If you have that curiosity as a host, you can pull out the nuggets from the speakers. You don't necessarily need to be the expert. Love that. Super cool. We have just another minute or so left here. I was curious, is there any like high level ideas you have for just getting started? And let's say no one's really done a webinar or any sort of event. They're just trying to get their event. A
small one internally with your internal team. It could be 10 people. Where do you start? It's like practice internally. Like do an all company meeting, right? If it's a small company. If it's a larger company, do a team meeting, right? And like treat it like a webinar. Be like, hey, we're going to practice this. We're going to have a host. We're going to create a simple run of show that's down to the minutes, not the seconds. You don't need queue to queue like an in-person event. I mean, you could. We've done that before with online events, longer, like 90-minute ones. You have a queue to queue, but just like a run a show that is blocked off within 5 minutes increments, or even down to minute increments, and just practice. That's number one. If you feel like you have someone that's done it and like you're good to go, do it with another partner, like another brand, another company. Like, do it with someone else. Don't do it alone, unless you're really good at like engaging people and you're really good public speaker. Doing something alone, it's a lot, right? Like, you're gonna really have to be on your game. So I always say partner up, but practice, partner up, and ultimately do it internally first. And if you do it externally, just don't promote it maybe that much. Just do it. See it, record it, watch their recording, which is what great public speakers and anyone in any profession does. They record themselves. Doesn't athletes, artists, they record themselves, and you study your recording.
Super cool, Mark. I love that. It's super, and I love the have somebody else either set it up internally. And I think my first webinar I did, I was like so nervous. And I had a partner come on, and they did the entire deck, the whole presentation. I basically facilitated. They even helped me host because I didn't really know what I was doing. And so we had an external partner, strategic partner, help us. And but yeah, do it internally. Love that. Super great advice. Highly recommend everyone go check out Mark on LinkedIn and check out AirMeet. They have a ton of great education.
I'm not on Twitter too much anymore, just given the state of Twitter. So LinkedIn's the best spot,
with you or follow you?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, Mark. Well, thanks so much for your time. Really great having you on. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone definitely check out your LinkedIn, AirMeet. Great stuff all around event-led growth. Thanks, Mark.